Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now I want to say thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed, because in 6 months this channel has reached 200 subscribers, and that is so freaking cool. That is so amazing. So seriously, thank you. Now I want to talk to you guys about loose substrate. It is probably, at least in my opinion, it is the most controversial topic when it comes to keeping lizards. Now I do want to say that I'm focusing just on lizards because I don't really know a lot about snakes, so I'm focusing on lizards. Now, before we even discuss the substrates, the loose substrates, I want to say that if you just got a lizard, then you're supposed to keep it on quarantine. Now, in the process, you are supposed to keep it on something like paper towels. And I'm not going to lie, I'm guilty of not doing this with my last two guys, because I put them on substrate right away, and you're not supposed to. And now the reason why you're not supposed to is because, first of all, you need to make sure that it is eating well, that it is defecating well. So you need to make sure that the poop, it's not all runny or looks weird or something. Obviously, if you get the animal and you don't know, and it has mites or parasites, then loose substrate will make it more difficult for you to take care of that. So obviously, it would need to be medicated first, and then it can go on loose substrate. Now the other thing is, if you get an animal with neurological problems, like for example, if you see it eating substrate on purpose, then it might be a better idea not to have it on loose substrate. So my point is that if you have an animal that is, a lizard that is healthy, then it can go on loose substrate, and it is actually the best. Now, loose substrate. I don't know why so many people think that loose substrate means sand. I really don't know, but right. Well, here I'm gonna explain the same way that I do every single time that I talk about this, which is like 3 or 4 times a week. Now, it is how can I say? There is actually nothing bad with not knowing. I didn't know. When I first started keeping lizards, that some of the substrates could cause infection. Now, you need to learn which ones to use and which ones not to use, because obviously not all loose substrates are good and not all are bad. Now, which ones are the bad? Now, we know that the worst, there is nothing probably worse than this substrate, is calcium sand. We know that that will impact your lizard. It doesn't matter how healthy it is. So obviously, stay away from that. Stay away from calcium sand. Stay away from Vita sand, which is sand mixed with vitamins. Now this is actually some other that I didn't even think about, but until recently I started telling people not to use, which is bird seed. Now those are mainly used with your mastics, and it is not exactly the same thing, not exactly the same problem with calcium sand, but how can you use something that you're gonna eat as substrate? I don't know who came up with that idea, but it's just not sanitary and not a good idea just overall. Now another one that is really bad is crushed walnut. Now obviously on the bag it doesn't say crushed walnut, it says desert blend, and that is really bad too. Now the reason why that one, I actually don't know if it will impact your lizard, but what I do know is that it is very sharp. It is like all the walnuts, they are basically crushed so small that they look like sand, but they are actually sharp. So when you with the lizard, if it eats some of that, then it is very possible that it's gonna cause lacerations to the mouth or intestines. So obviously you do not want to use that. Another one that is it's not bad, but you have to really be careful with it, is eco earth. Now the reason why is because eco earth, it's actually different substrates mixed into it, and obviously you will, if you use it, you know that it has like little strings of coconut, and those they are not well, at least as far as I know, no reptile is able to digest it. Now it's only, obviously it will not get impacted if it passes through, but if it doesn't, then it's gonna kill your lizard. And I'm actually telling you this because I know of 2 people that they lost their lizards because of those things. And I actually freaked out one time because I put some eco earth on my Aki's monitor substrate, and one time in the poop I saw like 2 or 3 of those little strings of coconut, and I freaked out. I just decided to just not take any risk and just take it all out. So before we talk about what loose substrates you can use, I want to ask you guys a couple of questions that I asked myself many times, because there were a lot of people telling me that the substrate that I was using was going to impact my lizard and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And I always had these 2 questions and nobody would ever answer to me. Now, first of all, if they live in the wild on loose substrate, then how is it gonna be bad for them? And my other, the other thing that I realized as I was getting more into like different species is that seriously, for every single species that I was researching, they were telling me to use either one or the other loose substrate. And then when I was trying to learn about leopard geckos or bearded dragons, they were telling me to put them on paper towels, and I didn't understand that. So if for every single species they tell you to put them on loose substrate, how is it that those 2 cannot go on loose substrate and they will get impacted? Doesn't make sense. Okay, still, before we talk about what substrate you can use, I need to make sure that I say a couple of things. Now, one is that you need to make sure that you always provide water in there. They need to be hydrated. Obviously, still for to be able to keep a healthy lizard, you always need to provide water. Now, obviously, this actually has to do with the loose substrate, because if they ingest it, a well hydrated animal will pass it through most easier. Now, the other thing is that you need to make sure that you are providing proper temps. Now, this is especially for bearded dragons, because I don't know why so many people decide to stay with the care sheet from what stores, and they think that a basking spot of 90 degrees is good enough for a bearded dragon, and that is not true, obviously. So like I said, you need to make sure that you actually do know what to use, which is 120 degrees, or some people do 130. Now, I don't go that high with my with the basking spot of my bearded dragon. It always goes up to 120, maybe 122, but it doesn't usually go up, because what I actually do is that I actually have one basking bulb and then one ceramic heat emitter. So it's basically providing heat like all around, but in one spot where they basically aim in the same spot, that's where it gets at 120 degrees. So that is very, obviously, like I said, that is very important, because they need to be able to basically function to pass the substrate. So finally, to talk about what what loose substrates you can use. There's actually a few. Now I'm just going to make this fast, and then I will tell you actually where to get each of them. So to make it simple, soil, sand, clay, moss, coir, which is coconut fiber, and I'm basically considering this as part of the substrate leaf litter. Now all of them are natural, and well, coconut fiber is not really natural, but still it can be used as a substrate. Now for soil, you always want to go for organic topsoil. So the best it is, to make this simple, like I said, the best is Scott's topsoil. Now if you are not able to find that where you live, well, at least here in the US, you can also use one that is called Earth Grow. For sand, you need to make sure that you use washed clay sand. There's some other different types of sand, and those, like I said, like calcium sand. There's kinetic sand, I think it's called, something like that. But my point is, always go for washed clay sand. Now you can actually find that and the soil on Home Depot or Lowe's, Menards, sometimes Walmart, but I at least where I live, I usually don't find those. For clay, to make this simple, you can just go with excavator clay. That one is safe to use, and obviously you can find that on the pet stores, or if not, online. And for coconut fiber, there's a lot of different things that you can use that have coconut fiber. For example, Django mix. I mean, you can simply buy one that is called coconut bedding. That's coconut fiber. Like I said, EcoEarth has already coconut fiber, but I wouldn't go with that one. And obviously you can find that on the pet store. For moss, you can get a peat moss or a sphagnum moss, and you can find those too on the pet stores. And actually, just so you know, Scott's topsoil, that one has sphagnum moss already mixed, so that is really good. Now the other one, leaf litter, as far as I know, you cannot find it on the pet stores, or at least I can't. So you are able to find it online, and my place to go is always Josh's Frogs. Right. So obviously, if you are new to loose substrate, obviously the first thing that you need to do is actually learn which substrates to use. So like I said, these ones that I mentioned, not only they are safe, but they are the best to use. And the best way to use them is actually by mixing them. So for example, like for desert species, usually you can use either just washed clay sand alone, or you can mix the soil, you can mix the clay, or you can add leaf litter, and that is really cool. So actually, basically, you are trying to create the substrate where they live, and obviously that is the best way to keep an animal. Now if you have a lizard that needs more humidity, like for example a crest gecko or a feral dragon, then obviously you can still use the soil and the sand, but instead of clay, you might want to use some type of moss or the coconut fiber, and those two they will help you retain the humidity, which obviously really helps. And that is that like I said, that's the cool thing about the substrate. So not only it will make the lizard basically live on the substrate where they live, obviously helps a lot with first of all, like it will make them like be more active actually, because you will find them digging, and that is good for them. Not only that, still, even if it's a desert species, some of the substrate, most likely like the lower layer, it will still hold some humidity, So obviously that really helps when they're shedding and they are digging. So that really helps. Also with some of the lizards that have really long nails, that will help too. And now the other really cool thing about it is all of these substrates, they are used for bioactive setups. Now if you don't know what's a bioactive setup, that's seriously an entirely whole different topic. But just a quick explanation. So it is basically a self-sustaining setup. So obviously you first need your substrate. You need to find out what to use, and then you get a cleanup crew, which is usually isopods and springtails. You can also add something like superworms, or what's called earthworms. So there are different stuff. And still, even if you don't add live plants, you can still throw in there the cleanup crew, and that will help you to keep the tank actually cleaner, because they will eat all, if not most, of the poop from your lizard. And now if you want to make it basically fully bioactive, then you need live plants. You just need to know which ones to use. So that is the really cool thing about loose substrate, and I really don't know why so many people are against it, but whatever. I'm trying to teach as much as I can. I do what I can. So I'm seriously hoping that this video is helpful, and if you know somebody that is trying to learn more about loose substrate, then make sure that you share this video with that person. So I guess that's gonna be all for this video. I really do hope that it was helpful, and make sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. So thank you all for watching, and see you next time.